Hey there, Mentor79 here, and I'm back with another deck profile video for the Cardfight Vanguard trading card game. In today's video, the deck profile I'm going to be doing one for is premium formats, Kageros, Dragonic Overlord the Destiny with Divine Dragon Knight, Barakat. Alrighty then, let's get started. Alright, first off, the main deck. For the main deck, we're beginning with the starting unit. Grade 0, Lizard Soldier Conroe. The starting unit, Grade 0, Lizard Soldier Conroe. By my opinion, he's the best starting unit to have for the Kagero clan's premium format. For his skills are, when ridden by a Kagero unit, you may move Conroe from your soul to the rear guard. And the second skill, as a rear guard, by counterblasting one and retreating Conroe from your rear guard, you may search your deck for any grade 1 or less Kagero unit and add it straight to your hand. So ideally, this second skill will allow you to search your deck for any specific card that's grade 1 or less in the Kagero clan, maybe a perfect guard or a heal trigger that you can use to pay for generation guards, or any other grade 1 or 0 that you wish to use for your later game strategy. And with that, we just about covered the starting unit. Next, let's get on with the grade 1 lineup. And now for the grade 1 lineup. For the grade 1s in this deck, we have 4 grade 1s, Lizard General Conroes, 4 Lava Flow Dragons, V format, 3 Blaze Convert Monk, Kagero, grade 1, and 2 grade 1s, Wyvern Strike, Membois. The grade 1, Lizard General Conroe, a support card for the Dragonic Overlord series from the G standard format. His skills are, the first skill, when called onto the rearguard circle, you may reveal one grade 3 in your hand. If you've done so, you may search your deck for any Dragonic Overlord from your deck and add it straight to your hand. If a card was added to your hand by this first skill, you must then discard one card from your hand as a cost. So for this first skill, it's a good way to secure a specific Dragonic Overlord you wish to have in your hand later, for if you wish to use it to rise to grade 3 or have it be discarded for your hand for stride cost or for any other reasons you wish to have additional grade 3s in your hand. And for the second skill, as a rearguard, by retreating Conroe from your rearguard, you may give your Vanguard Overlord a skill. The skill is, whenever your Vanguard attacks, you may countercharge 2. So since the Dragonic Overlord series specializes in attacking and restanding your Vanguard for multiple attacks, this countercharge 2 skill can be stacked multiple times, giving you a good way to refund a large amount of counterblast you wish to use for other unit skills later in the same turn or later turns. The grade 1, Lava Flow Dragon. Its skills are, the first skill, when ridden or called, you may check the top 5 cards of your deck for a grade 3 and add it to your hand. If the grade 3 was added to your hand by this first skill, you must then discard one card from your hand as a cost. And the second skill of Lava Flow Dragon, as a Vanguard or a Rearguard, during your turn, if you have more Rearguards than your opponent, you may give Lava Flow plus 5,000 power. So Lava Flow can then serve as a 13,000 power attacker for the front row, or the 13,000 power booster from the back row, as long as you've managed to clear out your opponent's field of rear guards first. The grade 1, Blaze Convert Monk, Kagero. His skill is, when discarded from your hand during your turn, you may pay a cost of Counterblast 1. If you've done so, you may give your Vanguard plus 10,000 power till the end of the turn. So since most Overlord and other restand costs require you to discard cards from your hand, you've managed to secure Kagero in your hand and have a counterblast to pay for this skill. Kagero can then give your Vanguard plus 10,000 power, which works well with your multiple attacks from your Vanguard. The grade 1, Wyvern Strike Membois. His skill is, as a rearguard, when boosting, if your opponent has no rearguards during the battle that Membois boosts, your opponent, if he wishes to guard from their hand, they must guard with 2 or more cards. So with Memboss, as long as you manage to clear out your opponent's field of rear guards, he can more or less put pressure or restrict your opponent's guarding options, especially since the G units like Zanbus Dragon and can allow you to wipe out your opponent's rear guards all at once. So, that's actually a great one to work with that G unit altogether. Not to mention, it's also a good useful card to have with other G units and grade 3s that mainly play with this deck. And with that, we just about covered the deck's grade 1 lineup. So next, let's get to the grade 2 lineup. And now for the grade 2 lineup. For the grade 2s in this deck, we have 4 Dragonic Neoflames, 4 Burning Horn Dragons, and 3 Berserk Dragons. The grade 2 Dragonic Neoflame, a support card for the Dragonic Overlord the Great. Its skill is, as a rearguard, whenever a Dragonic Overlord the Great on your field attacks, either a Vanguard or a rearguard, during that battle, it gets plus 5,000 power, and you may have the option of counterblasting 2. If the cost has been paid, the attacking Dragonic Overlord the Great gets plus 1 critical till the end of the battle. So with Neoflame, he's a good way to give Dragonic Overlord the Great a little extra power and a possible critical, as long as you can spare the counterblast 2. And the best part is, Neoflame's skill is stackable, so in the possibility whenever you attack with the Great, if you've managed to fill your field with multiple Dragonic Neoflames, it's possible to stack the 5,000 power to your attacking the Great for every Neoflame you have in the field, and still try to use the additional counterblast to pay for the plus 1 critical, making Neoflame a great card to support either a Vanguard the Great or Rearguard the Great. The grade 2, Burning Horn Dragon, D format. Its skill is, the first skill, when called onto the Rearguard circle, you may counterblast 1. If the cost has been paid, you may check the top 7 cards of your deck for an Overlord and add it to your hand. And if in the event that no cards were added to your hand by this unit's first skill, you may countercharge 1. So with this first skill, it's a good way to increase your chances of getting an extra Dragonic Overlord in your hand or securing an Overlord to ride with in your hand. And the best part about this first skill is it's refundable. In the possible situation you fail to get an Overlord from this first skill, you may countercharge 1, allowing you to refund the counterblast 1 paid for the activation of this first skill. And the second skill of Burning Horn Dragon, as a rearguard, whenever your Vanguard Overlord attacks, during that turn, Burning Horn gets plus 5,000 power. So, seeing as how the Dragonic Overlord series specializes in multiple attacks from your Vanguard by restanding after attacking, with this deck, it's possible to make your Burning Horn Dragon either a 20,000 power attacker or even a 25,000 power attacker from the front row, depending on what kind of Vanguard you attack with and how many times it managed to attack with, so long as it's an Overlord, making Burning Horn Dragon a great support card to search for Overlord and to attack alongside Overlord with both its skills. The grade 2, Berserk Dragon. His skill is, as a rearguard, whenever it attacks, if your Vanguard is an Overlord, it gets plus 5,000 power till the end of the battle and an additional cost of Counterblast 1. If the cost has been paid, you may retire one of your opponent's grade 2 or less rearguards. So ultimately, this version of the Berserk Dragon from the D standard format functions as a 15,000 power attacker from the rearguard for the Dragonic Overlord series, and also a good way to clear your opponent's field of rearguards, which is one of the other main playstyles meant to be used with this deck. And with that, we've just about covered the deck's grade 2 lineup. Next, let's get to the grade 3 lineup. And now for the grade 3 lineup. For the grade 3s in this deck, we have 4 Dragonic Overlord the Destinies, 3 Dragonic Overlord the Greats, and 2 Dragonic Overlords. The grade 3 Dragonic Overlord the Destiny, the main grade 3 to ride in this deck. Its skills are, the first skill, as a Vanguard, when ridden or during the beginning of the ride phase, you may Soul Blast 1. If the cost has been paid, you may choose one circle, rearguard circle on either player's field, and all cards on that circle are sent to the drop zone. So with this first skill, it's more or less a semi-omnipotent retiring skill, since its skill requires you to select a circle, not a card or unit. So cards with either locks or resist or any kind of ability or effect that prevents you from retiring it, with this first skill, you can bypass all those absolute defenses and retire it. So like I mentioned before, this first skill is with Dragonic Overlord, the Destiny makes him a semi-omnipotent retirer of rear guards. And for the second skill of the Destiny, as a Vanguard, when stridden on top of, you may counterblast 1. If the cost has been paid, you may retire one of your opponent's rear guards and then check the top 7 cards of your deck for an Overlord to add to your hand. So if the second skill is more or less a stride skill, whenever you stride a G unit on top of the Destiny by counterblasting 1, you have you also can then retire an opponent's rear guard and search your deck for a Dragonic Overlord, which is a good way to secure another grade 3 in your hand to either serve as a rear guard or a hand cost for your next stride, or any other skills you wish to use a additional grade 3. The grade 3, Dragonic Overlord the Great, V standard format. Its skills are, the first skill, as a Vanguard, when you ride Dragonic Overlord the Great, you may then superior call Dragonic Neoflame from your drop zone to the rear guard. So as long as you've managed to secure Dragonic Neoflame in your drop zone before you ride this grade 3, you can then use, whenever you ride Dragonic Overlord the Great, you can then call a Neoflame from the drop zone for no cost, making it a pretty good way to fill out your field. And the second skill of Dragonic Overlord the Great, as a Vanguard, once per turn, after attacking, if you have a grade 3 in your soul, by counterblasting 1 and discarding 2 cards from your hand, if the cost has been paid, you may stand not only your Vanguard Dragonic Overlord the Great, but also a rearguard Dragonic Neoflame at the additional cost of reducing your Vanguard's drive check by 1. So with the Great, you can then restand not only your Vanguard the Great, but a rearguard Neoflame, giving you 2 extra attacks to work with depending on how you set up your field. The grade 3, Dragonic Overlord, V standard format. Its skills are, the first skill, once per turn, as a Vanguard or a rearguard, you may Soul Blast 1. If the cost has been paid, you may give the Dragonic Overlord who paid for this skill plus 10,000 power till the end of the turn. So with this first skill, you can more or less ensure a 23,000 power attacker from your front row, Vanguard or rearguard with Dragonic Overlord's first skill. At a mere Soul Blast of 1, you'll have a pretty powerful front row attacker with this guy. And the second skill of Dragonic Overlord, as a Vanguard, once per turn, whenever your Vanguard's attack hits with Counterblast 1, discard 2 cards from your hand, and then you can stand your Vanguard at the additional cost of reducing his drive check by 1. So with this second skill, it's a pretty standard restanding ability for the Overlord series. As long as his attack hits either against an opponent's Vanguard or Rearguard, by paying a cost of Counterblast 1 and discarding 2, you may then restand your Vanguard Overlord, but reducing it by 1 drive check and have it attack a second time. And with that, just about covered the deck. Next, let's get on to the trigger lineup. And now for the trigger lineup. For the triggers in this deck, we have 1. Dragon Deity of Resurgence, Drag Vita, over trigger. 4. Dragon Dancer Palomas, critical triggers. 3. Dragon Dancer Tiklas, critical triggers. 4. Wyvern Guard Baris, draw triggers. And 4. Dragon Dancer Nastasias, heal triggers. The grade 0, over trigger, Dragon Deity of Resurgence, Drag Vita, the over trigger for the D standard formats, Dragon Empire. Like any other over trigger in the Cardfight Vanguard trading card game, it features the same activation and mostly the same effect. When revealed during a damage check or a drive check, you may then give one of the units in your field 100 million power and draw an extra card at the cost of removing the over trigger from play. And not only that, Drag Vita features an additional ability all on its own. Along with the additional power and +1 draw from his trigger reveal, you can also restand one of your Vanguards which is a good skill to go with the Dragonic Overlord series, which specializes in attacking multiple times with your Vanguard, making this over trigger from the Dragon Empire an effective support for the Dragonic Overlords for Kagero. The Grade 0, critical trigger, Dragon Dancer Paloma. Her skill is, when discarded from your hand for a stride cost, she is treated as a Grade 3. So with this skill, Paloma more or less serves as a stride fodder, giving you the option of either discarding her or a Grade 3. But if you're the type who likes to keep normal units in your hand for additional costs, you can use her as stride fodder instead, which was well for this deck. The Grade 0, critical trigger, Dragon Dancer Tikla. Her skill is, as a rearguard, Generation Break 1, whenever your Vanguard attacks, you may move your rearguard Tikla to the soul. If you've done so, during that battle, you get to draw one card, and your attacking Vanguard gets plus 10,000 power till the end of the battle, making Tikla a good power booster, hand increaser, and as well as a soul restocker with her skill in 1. The Grade 0, draw trigger, Perfect Guard, Sentinel, Wyvern Guard Baree. Like any other Perfect Guard in the Cardfight Vanguard trading card game, it features the same effect and activation. When used to guard with, you may discard one card from your hand if the cost has been paid. The attack that Baree guards is completely blocked. But since this is a V standard format card, it's for the Perfect Guards. In my opinion, Baree is a pretty great Perfect Guard to have in your V standard and premium format, since, as you can see, it's a trigger unit. So if you choose to use 4 Barees as your Perfect Guards, you have the option of using the usual 4 slots in your Grade 1 lineup that's mainly used for normal unit Perfect Guards for any other kind of Grade 1, maybe ones that help you in your main game strategy in the offense or defensive direction. The Grade 3, heal trigger, heal guardian, Dragon Dancer Nastasha. Her skills are, the first skill, when used to guard with, if you have not yet ridden to Grade 3 during that game, you may choose one of 2 effects. The first effect, your Vanguard gets plus 10,000 power till the end of the turn. So with this first skill, Nastasha can help protect your Vanguard from opponents that like to rush you early before you get the chance to ride to Grade 3 by having multiple attacks from their Vanguard and Rearguard early on. And the second effect of Nastasha, the attacking unit gets -2 critical till the end of the battle. So like the first effect, it's a more or less a defensive ability that stops your opponent from rushing you and finishing you off too early before you get the chance to ride to Grade 3. Except this second ability is more for the attacking unit rather for the overall battle or the turn. And for the second skill of Nastasha, whenever she's called to the rear guard, if you have 0 cards in your damage zone, you may take the top card of your deck and plant it face up on your damage zone. So with this second skill, it's more or less a way to help protect you from the damage denial strategy. The damage denial strategy is when an opponent prevents you from using any of your card skills by not giving you any counterblast to work with, by not attacking your Vanguard early in the game and only holding back their attacks until they have the clear advantage against you by not letting you have any skills to work with. But thanks to these heal guardians and their second skill, it's more or less a good way to counter the annoyance of the damage denial strategy and allow you to play your deck and strategy the main way you want to play. And with that, we just about covered the deck's trigger lineup. For the triggers in this deck, I play 1 over trigger, 7 critical triggers, 4 draw triggers, and 4 heal triggers. And also, that's just about covered all the cards in the main deck. So next, let's get on to the G zone. And now for the G zone. For the G zone, let's first start with the G units. We have 1. Supreme Heavenly Emperor Dragon, Blazing Burst Dragon. 1. Progeny Dragon of Lightning Flame, Gilgal. 2. Divine Dragon Knight, Barakat. 2. Supreme Heavenly Emperor Dragon, Zanbus Dragon. 4. Supreme Heavenly Emperor Dragon, Dragonic Blade Master Titan. And 2. Flare Arms, Ziegenberg. The Grade 4 G unit, Supreme Heavenly Emperor Dragon, Blazing Burst Dragon. His skill is Generation Break 8 as a Vanguard. When attacking, you may retire all of your opponent's rear guards, and then all of your own rear guards get plus 10,000 power, and if 3 or more rear guards are retired by Blazing Burst's skill, your Vanguard gets plus 10,000 power and 1 critical. The Grade 4 G unit, Virginity Dragon of Lightning Flame, Gilgal. His skills are, the first skill, from the G zone. This card cannot be turned face up by abilities. While face up on your G zone, you may choose to stride Gil Flame from your G zone without having to pay any stride costs. So as long as you've managed to stride Gilgal as your first G unit and leave it face up in your G zone, in the possibility that you are unable to secure any grade 3s or any other stride fodder to pay for your stride cost, you may still be able to stride by utilizing Gilgal's G zone skill. Then the second skill of Gilgal as a Vanguard, by paying a Counterblast 2 and Soul Blast 1, if you've paid the cost until the end of the turn, Gilgal gets a skill where its attack targets all of the units on your opponent's field and also gets plus 10,000 power during the attack. And also, for every time Gilgal's attack hits, you can countercharge 1. So for this second skill, it's a more or less a multi-attack in one, since you can attack all of your opponent's units, vanguards and rear guards included, giving himself 10,000 power plus 10,000 power for that attack. And since if you are able to successfully attack your opponent's vanguard or rear guard of this skill, you may countercharge continuously depending on how many successful attacks you've landed with this second skill's attack. The Grade 4 G unit, Divine Dragon Knight, Barakat, the main G unit of this deck. His skill is, as a Vanguard, when this unit attacks, you may turn 1 card in your G zone face up. If this cost has been paid, then if your opponent has 3 or more empty rear guard circles on their field, then your Vanguard Barakat gets plus 10,000 power, plus 1 critical, and plus 1 drive till the end of the turn. And if he has 5 or more empty rear guard circles on his field, all of your rear guards get plus 10,000 power till the end of the turn. So with Barakat, as long as you've managed to clear out your opponent's field of rear guards before his attack, you can give not only Barakat 10,000 power, critical, and drive, but also all of your rear guards 10,000 power, making your entire field tremendously stronger for a full assault. The Grade 4 G unit, Supreme Heavenly Emperor Dragon, Zanbus Dragon. His skill is, as a Vanguard, once per turn, by turning 1 card in your G zone face up. If this cost has been paid, then you may retire all of your opponent's rear guards, and then all grade 3 or above units on your front row get plus 10,000 power till the end of the turn. So this skill is more or less like Barakat's, focusing on clearing out your opponent's field of rear guards and benefiting by giving your entire field a full power boost. The Grade 4 G unit, Supreme Heavenly Emperor Dragon, Blade Master Titan. His skill is, the first skill, Blaze. For those of you who've kept up with the Cardfight Vanguard trading card game since the G era, you should know what Blaze is. Whenever a unit on your field attacks, if you have more rear guards than your opponent, your Vanguard enters the blazing state. And then the second skill of Titan, once per turn, as a Vanguard, Generation Break 2, by counterblasting 1 and flipping 1 card in your G zone face up. Then for every face up Blade Master Titan in your G zone, you may retire 1 of your opponent's rear guards, and your Vanguard gets a skill. The skill is, as a Vanguard, when attacking, if your Vanguard is in the blazing state, Titan gets plus 1 critical till the end of the battle. So thanks to Titan's skill, you can retire your opponent's rear guards and give your Vanguard an extra critical when needed, which works well with Barakat and Zanbus, whose skills let you flip any card in your G zone face up. So you can use Titan as cost fodder if you wish to activate Zanbus Dragon or Barakat's skills, which will also make it easier for you to activate Titan's own skills later when you choose to stride him. The Grade 4 G unit, Flare Arms, Ziegenberg. His skills are, the first skill, Blaze. Since I've already explained Blaze with Titan, I'm going to skip the first skill, so we're going straight to the second skill. As a Vanguard, once per turn, by Soul Blasting 1 and flipping 1 card in your G zone face up. If the cost isn't paid, you may retire your opponent's rear guard. And the third skill of Ziegenberg, as a Vanguard, once per turn, Generation Break 3. After it attacks, you may counterblast 1 and discard the same number of cards from your hand as your opponent's rear guards. And then, if the cost has been paid, you may stand your Vanguard at the additional payment of minusing your drive check by 2. So with Ziegenberg's third skill, it's a standard restatting skill for the Vanguard's Kagero clans, especially for Overlord series. And the best part about this third skill is its cost is almost adjustable, since the hand discard cost requires that you discard the same number of cards as your opponent's rear guards. So by taking advantage of your own unit's skills and attacks, you may be able to reduce the hand discard cost to 0 as long as you've managed to clear all of your opponent's rear guards before you attack with Ziegenberg, making him a powerful attacker but also a conservative defense, since you can possibly preserve your hand with him. And with that, we just about covered the G units of this deck. Next, let's get on to the G Guardians. And now, for the G Guardian lineup. For the G Guardians of this deck, we have 1. Supreme Heavenly Emperor Dragon, Defeat Flare Dragon. 2. Flamewing Steel Beast, Denial Griffin. And 1. Blaze Dragon Dance, Salama. The Great 4, G Guardian, Supreme Heavenly Emperor Dragon, Defeat Flare Dragon. His skill is, when used to guard against an opponent's Vanguard attack to your Vanguard, and if your Vanguard is an Overlord, you may pay the cost of Counterblast 1 and sending 2 Grade 3 or higher Flame Dragons from your drop zone to the bottom of your deck. If this cost has been paid, you may retire all of your opponent's rear guards in the back row. So with this skill, as long as you meet the conditions, you can wipe out all of your opponent's back row rear guards, which can help clear out your opponent's field of rear guards to make it easier to use certain skills, and also to reduce your opponent's attack power by cutting off their support from the back row. The Great 4, Flaming Steel Beast, Denial Griffin. His skill is, when used to guard against an opponent's rear guard attack, you may pay the cost of Counterblast 1. If the cost has been paid, the attacking rear guard is retired. So with this skill, Denial Griffin is more or less a pseudo-perfect guard to use against your opponent's rear guard attacks. And the Great 4, G Guardian, Blaze Dragon Dance, Salama. Her skill is, when used to guard with, you may Soul Blast 1 and discard 4 cards in your hand. If you've done so, you may choose one of your units, and it cannot be hit until the end of the battle. And this skill also has an additional ability. When paying for the cost of Salama's guard skill, you may reduce the number of cards you have to discard by the number of empty rear guard circles on your opponent's field. So as long as you've managed to clear out your opponent's field of rear guards, it's possible to reduce the hand discard cost to 0 at best. So also with this skill, Blaze Dragon Dance Salama is also more or less a pseudo-perfect guard against opponent attacks, as long as you can pay for the Soul Blast and hand discard cost, or if you can manage to clear out your opponent's field of rear guards to reduce the hand cost, thus making her a pretty powerful G Guardian to have in your G zone. And with that, we just about covered the deck's G Guardians and the G zone. And now I've just about finished covering the deck's deck build and card skills and card effects. So next, let's get on to the deck's main playstyle. The main playstyle of this deck is to have Dragonic Overlord, the Destiny, as your main grade 3 to ride with. Then have the option of striding G units that help you wipe out your opponent's rear guards, like Zanbus Dragon or Gilgal. And Dragonic Blade Master Titan as your first G units, as your main G units to strike with. Then, in your rear guards, try to have powerful front row attackers like Dragonic Overlord the Great, Dragonic Overlord. And in your back row, try to secure a Dragonic Neoflame who will give your Overlord an extra power. And also Wyvern Strike Mamboas, since with these G units and other skills available in this deck, you can use Memboss as skill to restrict your opponent's guarding, as long as you manage to wipe out your opponent's rear guards. And then for your second stride on, and furthermore, you can also then use the main G unit of this deck, Barakat, who specializes in, if your opponent has no rear guards in their field, he gets more abilities added like power, drive, and critical. Also, you have the option of, along with Barakat, your second strides or fourth can also be Dragonic Blade Master Titan, Flare Arm Ziegenberg, and the great finisher move of this deck, the Generation Break 8 Blazing Burst Dragon. So overall, for the main playstyle of this deck, secure the main attackers for your front row. The two other Dragonic Overlords in this deck, the Great and the Classic, have Neoflame on the back row to give the Great extra power and possible critical. Maybe a Lava Flow Dragon to serve as a 13,000 power booster for the rear guard. And for the main Great one to boost your Vanguard from the back row, have Memboss, who specializes in restricting your opponent's guards as long as you manage to wipe out your opponent's rear guards. Then for G units, try to have your first G unit strides be mainly ones that help you wipe out your opponent's rear guards early on. Then for your second strides and so forth, try to use the main G unit, Barakat. Also, depending on the situation, you may also use Blade Master Titan. And finally, for the finishing move, try to use Blazing Burst Dragon, if it's possible, to wipe out your opponent's rear guards, get power, critical, and restrict and other abilities available in this deck. And with that, we just about covered the deck's main playstyle. And now here we are at the end. I've just about finished explaining the cards and the deck's deck build and the main playstyle meant to be used to this deck. So with that, that's just about all the time we have for today. First off, I want to say thank you to the viewers for watching today's video, and to please stay tuned for more videos I plan to upload again in the near future. I also hope you all show your support by liking, commenting, sharing, and subscribing to my videos and channel. And with that, I say goodbye and see you all soon.